Number one is a Mark Grant Award process. Bill Heatherman. Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll call. Bryant.
Here.
Gilbert.
Here.
Markley. Here. Maddox.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Kane.
Here. Now we'll start. Mr. Heatherman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This first item is a communication regarding the status of our Mid-America Regional Council transportation grant applications. We have done very well this year, at least as far as the recommendation stands. The formal recommendation won't be made final by Mid-America Regional Council till October, but probably the heaviest lift is over in terms of the process that's used to rank and score projects. What you have in your packet is two tables, one which summarizes at a high level the 8 specific projects that we were awarded or have recommendation, I guess, at this point for award. And the second table is more specifics on how we propose to cash flow and fund those projects. The most important thing is I just want to give you a reminder of the projects that are here. This is, in fact, all the projects we submitted except for Minnesota Avenue. In the case of Minnesota Avenue, as you know, it's moving forward in pieces through another route. So I think we should be fairly pleased with the way our projects ranked and with the way the chips fell, I guess, if you will, this funding round. I don't know that we could expect to see that as a normal course of business, but we'll take it when it comes our way. The bottom line is it looks like we will stand to be awarded $10.7 million in federal funds over several funding years. And in order to meet our obligations to get those projects underway would take about $9.6 million in local match. That's both the match for the construction and inspection, plus we bear 100% of the cost of the design, right-of-way, and several other preliminary costs that are necessary. We have several safe routes to school projects, which will primarily be sidewalk and some other amenities at 6 different schools. We have also a grant to help us work with Bike Walk KC on some of the education outreach and encouragement activities that go with the program. We have funding for Leavenworth Road, sidewalk and turn lane improvements, a major complete streets project, which is 63rd Street to 38th Street. It's a very significant project. Funding for bus route 107, both a construction upgrade to the stations. That 107 is the 7th Street route that connects both City Hall and KU Med Center, as well as operating funds to support a southern expansion of that route that would make it connect to the Mission Transit Center. We have money for the improvement of Central Avenue and 18th Street intersection along a weighted project. We will close off the 5th leg of that intersection in order to make the overall intersection operate more efficiently and reduce the congestion. And we also have funds for another complete streets project, which is the 10th to 12th Street bike route, Metropolitan to Quindaro. All of those projects will stretch out between 2015 and 2018 construction years. We had left a placeholder in the budget already in order to support these projects, so this does not require a big relocation of other funds. The majority of the funding came from an $8.1 million placeholder that we left in the budget specifically for Mid-America Regional Council expected grant applications. Because we did a little better than expected, we are also proposing to take $1.4 million out of that out of a different placeholder, which was called Residential Collector Streets in the Future. That was kind of the beginning of planning the long run, but these kinds of projects fit that definition anyway. And the rest of it really comes from some existing cash sources that we had already set aside for safe routes to school, or which transit has set aside for their transit work. And when we come back and do the budget in the spring and summer of next year, you'll see all these projects officially organized and sorted into the budget. There may be a little bit of individual funding year cash flow that we need to do to make it all work out, but typically we have enough other changes happening anyway that all falls into place. We're not necessarily asking for official action, but we are moving forward on the presumption that these projects are awarded, and you all will take your action on these when the debt authorization resolutions come through at the end of the year. And with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Heatherman, can you tell me what the 6 schools are that are proposed in there?
Yes, sir. 5 of the schools are in USD 500. That's Frank Rushton, Hazel Grove Elementary, William Allen White, T.A. Edison, and Noble Prentice. And the 6th school is in the Turner School District. It's Midland Trail.
Okay, and I know I heard you mention many of the locations, I guess, that are proposed. I guess my next question is, how much will be spent in the urban core of Wyandotte County projected?
These 6 projects are a continuation of an overall Safe Routes to School program that we've had for 7 years. The first 5 schools were all in the urban core. Of these, depending on how you would define it, Frank Rushton is in Rosedale, Midland Trail is in Turner, Hazel Grove is at 63rd and Parallel.
I'm not just speaking about schools, I'm talking about the whole 10.7. How much of it roughly?
Oh, the 10.7 million?
Yes.
I don't have an exact breakdown by region. It's very much a existing renewal-oriented package that we have here.
Okay, when you say renewal, you mean the projects that were already projected, and once the money came available,
no, I mean
those projects, or?
I mean, if you look at this list of projects, these are largely projects that are, you know, in the older portions of the city, well established. For example, Leavenworth Road from 38th to 63rd is very much an area in need of renewal and redevelopment. 10th, 12th Street bike lane runs right through the heart of the eastern third of our city, from Quindaro and 10th down to 12th and Metropolitan. 18th and Central is, you know, long-standing area and a long-standing problem. So overall, the projects that you see here are all west of 435, primarily the eastern and center part of the city.
And how were the areas chosen?
These are projects that have been around on the drawing board. We take a look to see what projects at any given point we think are ready for application and which will score well. We visited this committee in June and gave the listing of the projects, and these are all those projects that we discussed in June.
I think if we want to add some, you know, or
Right, this call, yeah.
tell staff, hey, I got a
Right.
school I'm worried about or whatever, and
Right.
then they can adjust accordingly.
Right, and the schools in particular, the factors there is we coordinate with the school districts, and we actually go to the school districts and ask them where they're getting feedback. In addition, in order for a school to really be in a good position for the construction money with sidewalks, the principal and the on-site constituency at that school is asked to start preparing ahead. So these are all schools in which Safe Routes has been on the discussion with the district and with that school area. And if there were additional schools or neighborhoods with schools that stepped forward and said, hey, we want to be considered for Safe Routes, there's a number of years of preparatory activity that we like to do with them. This top one, Safe Routes Walking School Bus Expansion, Education and Outreach, actually has openings to add more schools than just the 6 that are listed. And that's where I would start with any schools that came to my attention as being a candidate for the future.
Okay, and I'd like to set up a meeting to further this discussion with you, Mr. Heatherman, and then also at that time, if you can present me with a detailed outline of how much money will be spent in the urban core, predominantly in the northeast area. I'd like to have that during that meeting at that time, but I'll send you an email about it.
Commissioner, how are you defining urban core?
I'm defining the urban core. That's why I said predominantly the northeast.
Well, I'd like it to be on record that the urban core to me is everything east of 635. Have you been down in Argentine lately?
Yeah.
It's pretty beat up, although we have some great projects at the end going on right now.
Yeah, I heard about 4 projects from from that area.
Storefronts empty and vacant, mobile businesses. So if we're talking about that as the urban core, I'm sure Commissioner Markley and I both have some schools that are in need of safer routes to school. There's a lot of need, and we'll have to take the money that we get and try to apportion it equally throughout the community where the greatest need is, and that's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
I second that.
Okay, we need to move back a little bit. I need the approval for the standing committee minutes for June 16th.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, the same sign. Ayes have it. All right, item number 2, Mr. Heatherman.
This also, next item is also a continuation of a discussion that we started at the beginning of the summer. Every 2 years, KDOT hosts a series of statewide meetings called their local consult process. And in that process, they visit 6 different locations around the state, the 6 different major areas. It's a major meeting. Folks turn out in droves and come prepared to do 2 things. One is KDOT usually reserves some of their more significant statewide announcements for this process. And they also have a series of subgroup meetings and workshops intended to allow us to share with them our local concerns and priorities. 2 years ago, we put together a letter to try to encapsulate a position paper to share. We're continuing that approach this year. Attached to your staff packet is an outline of the priorities, both projects and policies, that we're suggesting be featured in the letter that we will finalize. Apologize here, I'm going to look for the date of the actual local consult that's coming up. It will be Wednesday, September 24th from 9 to noon. This year they're actually hosting it here in Kansas City, so it'll be at the Hilton Garden. We'd certainly encourage any members of this committee that might like to attend to feel free, and if you have other constituencies that you would like to have attend, it is an open meeting, and I will assure you that other communities sure bring out a lot of folks sometimes, so it helps that we're represented. What I have up here, the KDOT Local Consult is really intended to focus on the state level major system. There's any number of other things we can talk to them about, but this is our chance to talk about the interstates and the major highways and our priorities. What you have on the board here is a summary view of our top 5 priorities that we as staff are recommending be the basis of the letter, as well as a listing of some other emerging priorities. The top 5 areas are shown with yellow stars. There's actually 6 yellow stars because one of our priorities we kind of cheated and snuck 2 together. And then the other locations are emerging priorities. If you'll look in the staff packet, I'll just list the priorities that we gave. Moving forward on I-435 and State, including the Village West and State Avenue area. Number 2 would be completion of what's currently planned for the Lewis and Clark Viaduct, I-70. Number 3 is moving forward with the I-35, the northernmost tier, K7 and I-70, completion up through Phase 4, and then hold and pause while we see how much more might be needed down the road. And then I-70 interchange safety, we're asking KDOT to move forward and working with us on some pragmatic approaches to improvements at least one of those 2 interchanges. The reason we structure these like this, it is very helpful to re-emphasize the things that we have been talking to KDOT over the years, and also very helpful to frame them in terms of a specific project that we would like to see them put money into, authorize, or move forward on a very specific next step. It is not uncommon for 6 months later to have KDOT turn around and make statewide announcements of what they're going to do. That is, in fact, what happened 2 years ago. After the local consult project, they announced that they would fund the study of the I-435 and State area. The emerging priorities is our attempt to kind of also get a little bit higher altitude and over the horizon. What we're really emphasizing to KDOT is renewal, reinvestment in the older areas of the city, whether that be the the inner core, Argentine Rosedale, the center of the city. We want KDOT statewide to put their money into the existing areas as opposed to constantly being attracted to the next expansion project that might be lobbied elsewhere in the state. We're also identifying the K5 and K32 corridors as important areas for us to begin to make long-range plans. And we're bringing attention to both transit as a state-level transportation issue instead of purely just a local government concern, and to make sure that aesthetics, bike ped, complete streets is being incorporated into KDOT's philosophy. And then the last page is, again, hitting some of those themes, but we're going to express some appreciation for our past work with KDOT and reiterate these policy goals. One of the policy goals is to reiterate the concern for the status of the statewide T-Work sales tax funding and make sure that the legislature hears loud and clear that local governments do not want to see that money that was supposed to be set aside for transportation used to offset other concerns. And then that second bullet, I just can't emphasize that enough. Target the funds towards reinvestment and renewal of existing infrastructure. The intent of this meeting tonight is to get dialogue, so if you feel like there's other priorities or if you feel like there's other information we need, I will emphasize it helps us if we can stay focused with KDOT. Even a list of 5 with these emerging priorities is starting to feel a little diluted, but we want to make sure that we're covering the range of needs in the county. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
I just wanted to comment that I'm hoping you're touching base with Commissioner Walters, because I know that K32 is an issue that's high on his priority. So if you could just make sure you've touched base with him and that he's seen this draft and feels comfortable with the ideas that staff's putting forth as far as that emerging priority, and that you're kind of all going in the same direction. I just know that's a priority of his.
Yes.
So you said that 5 items starts becoming diluted. In the priority list, is this the actual priority that you would prefer them in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
This is the priority staff recommends.
Okay, from top down.
Would you say a little bit more about K5 and how you want to address that? I noticed you mentioned the eastern part of it, and I know we're already starting to work on that. But how far out and in what manner are you guys thinking about?
K5 has really 2 distinct halves. There's the part, the eastern half, east of 435, and that's effectively Leavenworth Road. Opportunities for renewal, but it's a very urban corridor. K5 then jumps onto 435 and follows it up until it starts an independent roadway that connects through the northwestern part of the county into Leavenworth County and connects to Lansing.
The part that goes through Walcott?
That's right.
Is that, okay.
That western part is of great interest to the city of Lansing, and they have lobbied to have an alignment study done with the hopes that perhaps some form of expressway could be built up there. Unified Government has not expressed an official position on that one way or the other, but we do agree that the 2 counties and the cities ought to continue to dialogue and work together on a common vision of what K5 could and should be and how that investment should rank. And for right now, we are not identifying in a top 5 priority a specific action step, but we're saving this here so that we all remember that K5 is an important corridor for us to think about.
Okay, thank you. The other question, well, actually, it's a statement, is as you keep Commissioner Walters informed about K32, you can let me know about 72nd Street east of 38th, if there's anything going on. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I want to build a highway from Walcott to Lansing. You know, we did Donahue. They have access to get to us. We widened Donahue, and I don't see any good of taking people's farms away from them. We've already got the access roads. Anybody in the audience care to speak on this item? Seeing none, communication stormwater management plan.
Chairman. We're here today to present on our post-construction runoff program that's tucked up under a larger program for our stormwater projects. Today is just more of an informational purpose, and we will be no action by the committee needed. This is more based on existing regulations that are out there. And we will, Chris Burns with Benish has been with us since the implementation of writing this plan, and he is going to take over the presentation and go through the slides for us.
Thank you, Brent. Again, my name is Chris Burns with Alfred Benish and Company. We're going to talk a little bit about stormwater. I think something we all would like after the last couple of days. Wish it would rain. In light of the happening with rainfall that occurs here in unified government, there are certain things that the EPA requires the unified government to comply with, as well as other communities around the country, and even local communities such as KCMO. One of the things in the stormwater management plan that's required is to address stormwater runoff that occurs from developed or redeveloped property within the unified government that contains stormwater treatment facilities. You might ask yourself, what is a stormwater treatment facility? Those are certain types of installations at private property that does a good way of handling the quantity and the quality, improving the quality of stormwater that runs off into the creeks and the lakes. These are a couple examples that are out there. Some that you have here in some of the private residents, and private properties, as well as some of the commercial businesses that have these type of things. The intention is to address the quantity and the quality of stormwater that runs into local streams and lakes. The unified government adopted an ordinance back in 2008 to address the treatment of stormwater on private property when there is a stormwater treatment facility built there. Not all developments or redevelopments do have these facilities, but the ones that do require to meet certain obligations under the ordinance. One is to register the facility, let the UG know that this is there. Once that's registered, they're required to provide regular maintenance of the stormwater treatment facility. That could be anywhere from mowing the grass, replacing weeds. If there's some, for example, flowers or native plants that are there, they need to replace those. If any erosion has occurred, they're to repair that. Routine maintenance is required. At the end of 2 years, they're obligated to inspect that facility, address or notify or identify any problems with the site, provide an inspection report to the unified government public works staff, and then if there's any deficiencies or issues associated with making sure the maintenance is done or not done properly, that they take care of those as well. Again, these are just more examples of the types of stormwater treatment facilities you might see. Sometimes you may not see them because they're underground. For example, the one on the right is actually a way to retain stormwater underneath a parking lot, for example. Because this particular program is underway by the public works staff, there are things we want to do to try to work with the public and the property owners in order to keep this process going, moving forward. Currently, you have 23 registered sites in the Wyandotte County. 12 of them are required to be inspected now, but in other words, they've been built over the last 2 years and are required to be inspected this year. We intend to have an informational meeting with the owners of these properties, as well as with new potential developers and owners of properties, let them know that this program has been underway since 2008. This is something they need to be prepared for when they consider building and maintaining these type of treatment facilities on their sites. In order to be able to get consistency with the inspections as well as the reports that will be generated for the inspections, the UG is offering to go ahead and do the initial inspection and report writing for these initial 23 registered sites. This gives the owners an opportunity to not only see what the minimum expectations are of what these inspections would require, but also what the inspection report should contain. So once they have an idea about what that's done, what needs to be done there, then the follow-up inspections that they need to redo every 2 years, they will take care of that themselves then. If there's any deficiencies that we do find during these inspections, then they're obligated to take care of those just as the ordinance requires. The inspection costs typically run anywhere from $500 to $3,000 per site. Again, this depends on the complexity, the number of facilities that they have on site. For example, there may be a site that has some porous pavement, a bioswale, a bioretention basin. Those all require a little bit more observation and reporting than maybe just like a rain garden. So that was what the intention of the Public Works staff is going to be happening over the next couple of years. Starting this year, we will be sending out letters. There's a copy of a letter that we provided in your packet of information. This would be sent to the 12 sites that are required to be inspected this year, and then of course the ones that will be following up inspections over the next 2 years will be following through with the same letter. And those inspections are intended to be conducted in October. Hopefully the owners will certainly accompany us on that inspection so they get an idea of what's happening and what they need to do for future inspections. And that's, I think, all we have.
Any questions?
Yep. So you say it costs between $3,000 and $5,000?
$500 to $3,000.
Okay. So, and the government's paying that? We're paying for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that's just for the inspection, but if there's something wrong with the site, then if it's on private property, that person pays for it. If it's ours, we pay to take care of that problem?
These are typically on private property, so yes, the private property owner is responsible for any deficiencies and corrections of any problems.
Okay, so we're not obligated to take care of that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, just wanted to know where the money is.
Sure.
Commissioner, just to clarify,
Yes, sir.
we're going to do the first inspection. In future years, the inspection would be on them.
Oh,
But
okay.
the ordinance really doesn't require us to participate even in the first one, but, you know, in order to make the problem flow, we thought it'd be best that we participate.
And so any additional new sites, will we do the same? The first inspection on us and then?
Up till September 10th, it will be the rule.
You are so bad.
Up to the end of December of this year is any new facilities that are constructed and ready for, that come under the requirements of this particular program would be inspected by the UG. After just January 1st, the owners will be required to do that 2-year inspection.
Okay, and so we're going out to, so as we identify places ourselves that should have some type of site, because there's an issue?
No, these are
No?
actually sites that are registered. When they submit plans to the UG before they construct them, that is when we know that they have these stormwater treatment facilities. So we already know we put them on the register then, that we know after we inspect them after construction, the time starts then for that 2-year inspection.
So in other words, when people get ready to do their building and do other things like that, this is just part of that?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
this might be part of the plan, is that they have to have a settling pond or whatever?
That's it, yes. that's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
BP member Bryant.
So the inspection, will it be done by UG employees?
At this point in time, they were going to be a combination of UG employees as well as Benish. Depending on the complexity of the stormwater treatment facility, there's some of them require a little bit more expertise to make sure that they're operating properly and maintained properly.
So in the future, when it's solely the responsibility of the private individuals, will they have a list of qualified inspectors to choose from?
At this point in time, they're not required to have any professional engineer or other technical individual do the inspection. That is up to their obligation, but we thought by doing this with them, they would have an idea about the level of consistency and of quality that we'd like in the inspections as well as the inspection report.
Will there be, like, will the inspection have to be, in the future, some kind of certification to prove that it was done and that it's up to meeting what the federal guidelines would require?
Well, that's what the inspection report is. Once they do the inspection, they're required to submit to the Unified Government staff a copy of that inspection report.
So they can do it themselves in the future?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Commissioner Walker.
I'm a little confused about what a stormwater treatment facility, what comes under its definition. What differentiates the bioretention pond from an ordinary pond?
A bioretention pond has, not to try to be too technical, but usually a design, there's a forebay that collects floatables and debris, and that's an easy way to be able to collect those before the water gets into the rest of the detention pond. That's a way for to maintain and remove the sediment and other things. It reduces the sediment that eventually get into the pond. There's also usually some type of native plants that are in there that grow, and so it's kind of like not only a treatment for any other things that are left in the wastewater before it's discharged into the local stream, but it also provides an amenity nearby to where these are typically built. But it provides not only collection of debris and sediment coming off the streets, but it also provides some treatment for some hydrocarbons and this is oils and greases, as well as maybe some metals that come off, the runoff comes off the streets and things like that.
Is this, are these new sites, I mean, these sites you've identified, are they treatment facilities that have been built since the ordinance went into effect?
Yes, sir. That's correct. Since 2008.
What is your assessment? These are federally mandated regulations that these fall under, or state? Or federal law mandates the state pass?
The unified government is complying with the requirements of their state-issued stormwater permit. The stormwater permit references the EPA regulations on this. This is one of the 9 minimum controls, they call it, or 6 minimum controls that's required.
Looking down the road, is this going to be a retrofit process as time goes on for older houses in other neighborhoods that have stormwater runoff issues?
Chris, I'll go ahead and take that.
And the reason I ask that is that in Albuquerque, I have a friend who was required, he's 7 miles from the Rio Grande with nothing between him but desert. And so you would think that would be enough of a filter for the water that runs off his property. But he has a thing in the back of his yard, and the water all goes through that, or that's at least the visible part of whatever treats the water. And every so often a red light goes off and it sends a signal to the stormwater patrol that his machine has malfunctioned and isn't working. And all the people in that particular area have had to install these. Now, I guess my concern is, okay, it's fine with new construction, that's just part of, you know, the cost of building a new home or a building. But are these regulations evolving to where you foresee that there's going to be some kind of compulsory retrofit or application of treatment to 30, 40, 50-year-old homes?
Mr. Walker, I'll go ahead and address that. The federal policy right now and the federal regulations that we've had to write these ordinances to meet are triggered by the act of development. They apply in new developments. They also apply in redevelopment. So if there's a tear down and rebuild, we're required to consider it. However, in a redevelopment situation right now, we give full credit to whatever percentage of the site was already covered with hard surface, and we don't require these for the portion that had already been developed sometime in the past. That's the way it currently stands. Every time I see a new press release on this ordinance, I hear that EPA would like to tighten those reins, and then that goes away for a while and you don't hear any more about it, and then you hear it again and then it goes away. We will be back to you as a staff if and when our duty changes to be more restrictive. We have no intent of extending our authorities into the kind of scenario that you're talking about, and we would imagine that it'll be quite a big to-do that EPA will have on their hands, you know, when and if they actually make a final rule proposal in that respect. Our current framework is this applies in new development, and even in redevelopment, it's somewhat proportional to the amount of extra intensity as opposed to simply you know, kind of going backwards in time. And that's the way this stands. By the same token, just because somebody might have a pond and it might be doing some good for stormwater, that does not get it put on this registry, and that does not get it subject to this ordinance. This ordinance only applies to those facilities that were proposed and part of a development that had to come through and meet our planning code. And so these developers all knew that what they were building was something that would get the title stormwater treatment facility and have these kinds of duties. So somebody just happens to have a wetland on the back of their property and they like it, this doesn't really touch them.
I would only respond, having seen the federal law, and state law for that matter, how it operates. They only get you a piece at a time, and once they get that first piece, then somebody with a good idea is going to go after the second piece. I don't dispute that these are probably very beneficial to the environment. We're all for, you know, clean water and clean air, but there's going to be a lot of engineering work for people down the road for retrofitting houses with meters and other water monitoring devices. Okay, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to speak on this item? Seeing none, the most exciting thing we've seen in quite a little while is communication from South Patrol update.
Commissioners, Bob Roddy speaking. With the development of the old structural steel site, a TIP district was established, and at that time it was contemplated that it was an opportunity to build a new South Patrol station on this site. At the same time, the Department of Corrections had a need for office space, and it came to be that perhaps both of these sites could use the same facility. In addition, at that time, we received approximately a $400,000 grant. So staff proceeded with that concept. It was included in the budget that was recently adopted, and it was noted in the budget that the funding would come from a source outside the general fund. In addition, staff proceeded to issue a notice of need requesting engineering services to do a design build for the building to be housed for the Corrections and South Patrol. Unfortunately, since that notice of need went out, the Department of Corrections has notified the staff that they are not ready to proceed with this project this time. So staff has withdrawn the notice of need. We are basically reevaluating our potential options. I believe it's envisioned that the staff would work on options and bring it back to the Economic and Finance Standing Committee to review our potential financial options and the size of the project in the future. This information, we had intended to come to the Standing Committee this month and give you information about the notice of need and how we were proceeding and the timetable for construction. Unfortunately, the state's change of mind has altered our current course. So it's intended to reevaluate where we are and to proceed to come back to standing committees and talk about how we proceed with this project.
Well, Mr. Roddy, why was it that the state changed its mind? Surely somebody from the state must have given you some more information than that.
I believe that they were dissatisfied with the cost of square foot. What we came to find out from the corrections is that a lot of their facilities, they get free rent, and that's hard to compete with. They're currently paying, I don't know, at one level. This would have increased their cost. They were not saying that what we were charging was unreasonable. They were just saying that their budget is so tight that they could not afford any additional rent money, and that if it just financially wouldn't work at their level. So,
well, now, Mr. Roddy, is there any truth to the notion that outside parties have interfered in this contract process?
no, not that I'm aware of, and I've been involved in most meetings. I'm not aware of any. You know, we were ready to proceed. So when we went to the meeting with the state probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe it wasn't even that, we were expecting them to say, yes, proceed, and they pulled the rug out.
Well, where are they gonna put their facility now?
It's my understanding that they're still negotiating at their current site. I don't know if they have a final.
They're not going back to the, next door to the kiddie center.
I am not totally aware of where they're going, but I know that they were in negotiations to stay at their current site. I know that they are not planning to go back to the kiddie site. That was made painfully aware. They're aware of that. Matter of fact, it causes them a problem. They still have a lease over there. They don't know what to do with. So, but that's their problem.
Doug, you better come up here. Because Bob's leaving and this is not gonna work. Do we know how much it would cost if all we built was South Patrol?
You know, we're working on that for a project cost right now, and that's why Bob's not sitting down tonight and saying this is how we'll work it out. Based on some of the pro forma that we had run through in coordination with how we were doing it in a joint project with corrections, you know, we think we can get in there around the $2.5 million range. Now, there were some previous designs that were done on it that had it double that cost, but we scaled a lot of that, most all of that out of it, and built it in to be what more of a facility, I would say, that's similar to what we have at Midtown, which we think is a nice facility and would look appropriate in that redevelopment district. So we have to work with that, and we think that's a number that we can work toward and still being able to leverage, as Bob said, about $400,000 from the state. That's helps us out. You know, I mean, the TIF district doesn't start to flow revenue into this project for 6 or 7 years based on current projections. So the scenarios that I have Lou Levin and Mike Grimm working with that we will come back to Economic Development and Finance would be ones where we take and try to back end our principal, and then we come to you. Then there'll still be a cost. I don't think there's any way we can look at a project like that now and say, well, you're not going to have any general fund obligation to it. You're going to have to obligate money to it. But if we can get it where we can, you know, come back to you and we're saying we're going to build a $2.5 million facility and our general fund obligation will be less than $1 million, then I think we've got something that, you know, it looks at it just like the earlier projects that Mr. Heatherman was up here, where we can leverage basically other dollars to make our projects work. Then that's really been the scenario where our governing body looks at and says, okay, that's something we want to move forward with now. But that's where we're trying to get that, so we can bring that back to the committee and say this is how we could see financing it and make the leveraging work.
Okay, we just had an issue with a renovation on Minnesota Avenue of $1 million, correct? Something like that, million something. Reardon was the one that presented it.
Right. For on the streetscape?
Yes. And if we can find $1 million for a street, I can't say the word. And this goes back not just to the South Patrols in the house. Nobody can go up there and log a complaint because there's nobody there sitting at the front door waiting for them. This goes back to having police cars where the paint, you can't even tell they're a cop car anymore. This goes back to our fire stations are pitiful. And somebody asked me one time, would you like to have your son living in a place like that? The guy had no idea who my son was. I said, I do have that. And we're always saying we need to be creative. And I argue with Ann more than I argue with all the rest of the commissioners combined. But this looks a little strange. And I know this is for informational purposes only, but there's a lot of people out here that want to see something done. I got to calm down a second. Commissioner Philbrick.
What did I do?
I thought you wanted to talk.
Oh, well, I was going to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so now I'm confused. Okay, so as to what we want as a commission and as what we're directing them to do. So it's come back to us. It's $2.5 million to create the South Patrol. Are you advocating for that?
Yes. but
Okay,
what I'm
no,
saying-
I'm just asking you.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we found money for other stuff. I don't want to kill this project right now. Nobody raises more money than she does. And I don't think that we've reached out to as many people as we can to help build the project.
I haven't heard it say that it wasn't going forward. I just heard it say that it's gonna have to shift in
Well,
the
some
funding.
things go
so far.
forward with other commissioners that they don't with others. You know, some
Well,
get
no.
what they want, some don't. That's the bottom line. Let's just tell it
Commissioner-
just straight the way it is.
Commissioner, I've been a part of this project since day one, and I can tell you, your staff has busted their keister on this, trying to get this moved forward. It is not for the want of our effort that this has failed. The state pulled the trick on us, or they changed their mind. We did not do anything contrary to that. And I said earlier in this that we were going to come back with options, and I think that's the intent of the staff. We're just telling you, we just got hit with a line ball. We didn't see this coming, and the state changed their mind. So we're with you. We want this project to go, but we have to go back and see what we do now.
I know you took that away from
I'm gonna-
You thought I was through, but I wasn't, but go ahead. Thank you. Okay, so I was just trying to understand where everybody was on this page. That's why I asked the question. Because I did not hear you say anything about we're pulling the rug out from it, because I did not hear that. I just all I heard was that you were talking about 400K from the state, is that correct? And that there would be some other monies from our general fund, and you didn't lay out where the other monies would come from yet, because you haven't found them yet. And I understand he's asking that you look, but I don't want this to be adversarial. I want this to be that we are actually working for this. And I understand everybody wants the South Patrol to go. And we're sorry that they pulled the rug out from all of us, because they pulled it out from South Patrol and the people that live on the south side too. So that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Walker.
Yeah, Mr. Ruddy, I don't think the issue here or the adversarial nature of what you're hearing is a result of anything that the staff has or has not done. We had a deal with the state. That deal was solid, it was moving forward, and all of a sudden it stops. Now, I believe they told you that it's a little higher than what they normally pay. I have also been told, and I am researching it through my sources, that one or more of our own legislative delegation in Topeka submarined this project with the governor's office and the Department of Corrections with baseless threats. Now, if I find out that that is true and I can have that verified, that is unconscionable that our Wyandotte County delegation would not work hand in hand with us on major redevelopment in an area that is east of 635 in the urban core. Are you aware of that?
What you just said is the first time I've ever heard of it. And
Okay, well,
I've never heard it from anyone. I've never.
You know, Wyandotte County's full of rumors, so I'm not prepared to name names. But if I am doing all I can with the sources I have to get verification of that. And I will make that public when that happens.
In our conversations with the state, I got no hint that if they're very close to as to their reasonings. They did not share their, except for money. That's the only thing they told us.
Board Member Bryant.
Now, I know this won't be funding in advance, but possible reimbursement, but the property that is current South Patrol, I remember in a previous meeting, there was discussion about the cemetery or funeral home, interest in purchasing that. Do we have a feel for how much the value of that property would be?
I probably would answer it this way. When we went back and looked at the project, yeah, there is interest in that property. We have 2 operations that go out of our current South Patrol area. We also have our tactical unit that operates there today. In discussions with our police department, we really don't think the redevelopment district is a good location for our tactical unit. So right now, we would not be moving them out of there. That's a very high profile area when we come in and move out and set everybody up. So after we looked at it, at least our recommendation from staff would not be that we would move our tactical unit away from there. I mean, and And granted, if you direct us and say we want to move them out of there and put them somewhere else in the city, then we can look around and find different areas, and we can go buy a different piece of property or try to move them in with something else and then sell that property. But right now, that's not our mode of operation. We move the South Patrol, but leave the SCORE unit there and then probably move them into the better facility, which would accommodate their needs going forward.
All right, since it, oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so basically, as far as that's property, there would be no reimbursement of funds expected from.
That's where we're
current site.
operating today.
Thank you.
Since it's Ann's area and it's affecting her the most, Commissioner McGee.
Thank you very much, Chairman Kane. So I just want to make a couple comments. I agree with your comments, Mr. Walker, that I think staff has done a good job. And I also think that the Department of Corrections, in particular Secretary of Corrections, who I've met with personally, has been very professional. So I don't think, even if there was any truth to what's been out there, and I've heard those same rumors as well, they wouldn't, it wouldn't be their typical behavior to share that with our staff. So it's not surprising to me that our staff hasn't heard that from them. I would tell you this. So I've been up here a couple of different times about South Patrol. I disagree with Mr. Bach that we don't need to move our tactical unit to this location as well. I think it's ridiculous to maintain two separate locations within a mile of each other when we could sell one, create some revenue from that, and put it into a new facility. And I'll give you the best sales pitch I have. I've heard a lot in the past year about how we spend a lot of money on public safety. Like somehow they're supposed to get their own money some way. I don't know. I don't know what people expect. It is a core service that we provide and that we are supposed to provide. And we cannot continue to ignore their infrastructure and equipment needs across the board. Maybe they still get their job done. I think that has more to do with the dependability and reliability of our officers than about anything that we're doing up here. And there's a big difference. When we go to cut budgets, people act like we don't cut public safety because of some unsaid reason. The reason we don't cut public safety, my assumption is that if we cut road improvements, so we all have to hit a few more potholes on the way home. We cut public safety anymore. What happens when we don't have officers to show up at a shooting or firemen to show up at a heart attack? There is a big difference between a public safety budget and a road budget. It's a big difference, you guys. And it's a core service. What Commissioner Kane was talking about earlier, I believe was $1.5 million or close to it for the redevelopment of the old CATS building. Those of you that are original dots might know what the old CATS building is. I'm not familiar with it. I just understand it's on Minnesota Avenue, and it appears to have a lot of sentimental value to people that live here. That's fantastic. We all, in each one of our districts, took a cut in our road improvement budget so that that project could move forward. In one meeting, we found, and actually, I take that back, in 2 meetings, we found $1.5 million to move forward a development project that the end result was a coffee shop on Minnesota Avenue. Now, I understand that there is a lot of potential for development in that area, and that's moving that area forward. That's great. But when you look at all of our money, instead of looking at isolated projects that come in front of committees one at a time, when you look at the big picture, I am startled that we cannot find $2.5 million for public safety, the core of what government does, but we can find $1.5 million for a development project that leveraged no dollars and that brought a coffee shop in. I doubt the sales tax is ever going to give us back from that project, or the property tax will ever give us back from that, the money that we invested. And as Commissioner Kane said, it was solely for landscaping improvement projects. So I'll stop and just say, what I would like to see this committee do is make public safety a continued priority in this county. and improve the morale of all of our officers, whether they be fire or they be police, and empower them to do their job even better than they do it now. And that you move both of these, you ask staff to move forward with building a public safety facility, including the tactical unit, sell off the home and the barn that they're currently in, and use that revenue to buy down the debt on a new facility. I would greatly appreciate it if you would move that forward today.
Okay, well. A
Don't we
spirit.
have a buyer, Mr. Bach, for that whatever, that little house and the barn behind it?
They're interested parties for it, yes.
So it's probably not gonna be a hard sell. The question is price. I'm not suggesting they're necessarily offering what we want for it. But another problem we have, I really think the tactical unit needs to be somewhere where you're called out. How do I say that? First of all, you need a tactical unit that allows women, if they qualify. There's certainly some women over the years that I've known in the police department that I would believe could qualify. Currently, it's my understanding that they don't bid that job simply because we only have one room and one set of showers. Is that correct? In other
You know,
words,
I would have to go ask police to come to that. I mean, we do bid the job, but I don't know that there's a restriction like that on it.
I'd like
I
to
mean-
say something
Well,
about
I guess
that
I'd-
comment.
Okay.
And that is that I'm going to rebuttal you a little bit because I worked at BPU for 8 years. And when I worked down there, they didn't have any separate facilities for the women either. Okay, but it didn't stop me from working down there. So, you know, you just run the men out and you use a facility. It's the way it is. I mean, you know, you just can't let those little things stop you. Yeah, we'd all like to have separate facilities. In our spot, we only have one bathroom in the 9th floor for us, and we get to share that one at a time. So, you know, get over it. I don't think.
Whoa, come on.
And that's all I have to say.
We don't need a debate. Now, here's what I'd like to do. I know there's a lot of people here, and we've been at this for a while. We've given the staff direction, but I would like to hear from the people. But instead of giving you 5 minutes, we're going to give you 3 minutes. So if anybody'd like to step up and speak on this project, please do. Come on up.
Well, first of all, my name's Tom Melbourne.
Hold on,
You-
let's get you a mic.
And,
You're going to have to, sir, please say your name,
Yeah.
your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Tom Valverde, I live at 1319 South 28th Street. And first of all, the definition of a rumor is something that's been word of mouth, something not direct from the person. I can tell you directly that Senator Petty told me, what in the hell is she doing?
We don't want any names.
What in the heck is she doing building a station? Doesn't she know the state of our economy? Does she know there's other better projects that could be done? I'm giving you the name that it isn't a rumor. I heard it with my own ears in a conversation, she and I. And it's not an unknown fact that this woman has it in for our wonderful commissioner. It's not unknown. I'm up here, and I came to this particular meeting because I want this thing built. And I do want you to, I really applaud the fact that you're wanting to investigate it. And I hope that if she has done something wrong, and I'm saying Pat Petty, she's our senator.
Sir, one more time and I'll ask you to leave.
Okay, thank you. But I want to tell you that it's not a rumor. It is the God's truth that was spoken to me. I'm not making up stories. I'm not telling stories. I worked with her husband at the Argentine activities. I mean, it's just something that's really vital, and it's like being pulled under the rug, something pulled out of the rug for us when you guys decide, well, we can't find $1 million. $1 million nowadays, it's like $100,000 a few years ago. $1 million is squat. And we're taxed to death, and I'm just sick and tired of hearing about our government not having money for this when you know there's money for something else. And as far as the police and the fire, they are working in squalor, and we should be ashamed of that. And we really need to be improving, and we need to reach out to the Hallmarks and to the Sprints and to, you know, it's wonderful they have these wonderful convention centers, but when they need to take care of the community, the actual community, the working nuts and bolts of the community to continue forward and make both Kansas cities great. It isn't just about just one person. It's a bunch of all these businesses that we have drawn here. We are constantly writing them off. You don't have to pay taxes so that you can come and build your business here. It might have worked in the past, but you guys have got to look at stop doing that, because we're going to bite off more than we can chew. And that's what I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this issue? Come on up. Please say your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Marcia Rupp, 2816 North 46th Street. I just want to say I don't know why the police were ever put at that location in the first place, up in Maple Hill. To put anybody that has to go out and work in life-death situations around a cemetery is just unbelievable. I worked at South Patrol for 3 years. I worked with Don Ash, who is now the sheriff, who was the major at the time. Did several duties there, answering phone, filing papers, so on. In this place, it is so small that whenever there was any kind of a sting operation or anything like that that was private that you couldn't hear about, I had to get up, I had to go outside the building, because there's no place in that building that you can hold a private conversation, that you would have to talk to an officer personally or reprimand them or anything like that. You could absolutely hear people relieving themselves in the restroom. This is no lie. I'm not lying about this. I spent a lot of time there as a volunteer. I spent 3 years at West Patrol, and I spent about 5 months down at Central. This was before Midtown. And both of those other places, there was enough room, you know, for private conversations, you know. But I was actually told to get up and leave and go outside the building when there was a sting operation. I understood that, but there was no way that all the officers were in one room. And this, I'm talking about a shift, just a shift. They were packed in there like sardines, standing there, all in the sergeant's one room, okay? And it's just not accommodating to have a police department there. They need something better. You know, our police department and our fire department are great, both of them great departments. I can remember when Ron Miller was here, and that was the last time we were accredited. You have to pay to get into the accreditation. We were accredited in all 3 departments.
You have 30 seconds.
3 departments, okay? We were one of the only 3 in the United States of America, below Wyandotte County, that was accredited in all 3 departments in our police department. A great department that does not have updated tools, that does not have updated technology like they should have, okay? We heard Ziegler telling about how tasers are passed off.
Time's up. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on it? Please come up. State your name and your address. Please speak into the microphone.
Bill Rogers with the Argentine Neighborhood Development Association, 7362 Yecker. I've been involved with this project since the very start, and I'd just like to remind this committee that as we move this forward, I've spent a lot of time on this, and by time I mean out in the community, talking to the people that live in that community, and spent a lot of time in living rooms, and these folks want this facility. They need it, and they want it. They want it in their area. I don't think I've had one person that, even when you was gonna move parole in, that was objective to this project. So I would ask, as the development continues growing down in that area, this would be a very nice asset to to that area down there. So that's just all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Please come forward. State your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Pete Fogarty, 12222 Hubbard Road, Kansas City, Kansas, 66109. I've been with the police department for almost 40 years. Came on in 1975, hit the streets in 1977. South Patrol was already in existence at its current location back then, and it was ill-advised in 1977, and it's even more so today. As you heard, the quarters are cramped, they're outdated. The building is, I don't know how it's standing up. Our SWAT team is housed in a garage behind the current location, South Patrol. It used to house the street department. When it was no longer good enough for the street department, they put our SWAT team back there. The SWAT team needs a new facility, and it doesn't need to be the South Patrol, with all due respect, Mr. UG. They need this. They need a new location. You know, we deal with the crime in Wyandotte County, and then we got to come back to South Patrol and we look at that old building. It served its purposes over the years. You know, it's not even worth being in a museum. It's so out of shape. The lady hit it on the head. You know, a new facility would go a long way in improving morale. Improved morale goes a long way in serving its public. Find the resources to make this happen. I've been around long enough to know that I've learned that when the 9th floor wants a project to happen, they find the money to make it happen. I'm asking you to find that money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Please come forward. State your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Mario Escobar. I live at 1438 South 25th Street, and I'm the Executive Director for Argentine Betterment Corporation. And we've held several neighborhood groups, neighborhood meetings down there, and the folks are really looking forward for this facility. They're proud. A lot of things going on down there in Argentine, a lot of redevelopment, and this facility should be one of them. Now, if it's even minimized, you know, to a small facility, it's not going to be right for what these officers deserve. And, you know, we need to try to find that money somewhere to continue this project and support these officers and the community down there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Please state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Roxy Armstrong, 6541 Donahue Road. And I'm just a regular citizen here. I heard about this going on, and I'm concerned about everybody's well-being. I would hate to live in that area down there. That's scary. And not only that, can you imagine if that starts happening everywhere around here? You have no concern for our people that actually live there? We already have a bad name. Wyandotte County has a horrible name when it comes to our police as well as the people who are always getting in trouble. Why can't we help these guys get it together? And that's the only way we can do it, is give them a place to actually work. Sounds to me like they might as well work in a tent. It'd be better. I just don't understand. I want them to get more money, because I know it is somewhere also. I know it's very much, I know it's somewhere else, and it can be used.
Thank you, ma'am. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Please come forward, state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
I'd like to thank you for being so diligent and patient.
Commissioner, I've been called a lot of things in my time, but diligent isn't one of them. Bob Wing. I'm president of the Kansas State Council of Firefighters and the business manager for the Firefighters Local Union here in Kansas City. I want to make a couple of points before I offer my support of this project to the standing committee. I want to apologize to the speakers here for being limited to 3 minutes. Commissioner Kane has never done that to anyone and he wasn't going to do it here until he saw me sitting in the back. And that's the real reason he limited you all to 3 minutes, is because of me. So whatever you want to make of that. And Commissioner Walker, I'm appalled that you would think that some Wyandotte County politics and rumors that exist here would be triggering something. That just floors me. The firefighters met last week and have been watching this project for quite a while, and obviously support it not only for the police officers that it is sorely needed for to work out of, but for the community as a whole. I agree with you, Hal, that the urban core is east of 635 from river to river, or from state line to county line. And I think the commissioners in those areas, as well as the commission as a whole, should be commended for the progress that you are making in the community, whether it be east or west of 635. I've been around almost as long as my good friend Pete Fogarty, but not quite. And I had to get that one in. So, but seriously, Pete and I have both seen this community when we had to borrow money to make the payroll. When we negotiated contracts where bonds had to be let, that we got the raises. That's truly not what's going on right now, although it's not where it needs to be, but that's not the future either. So obviously the firefighters met and wanted to offer their full support for this project going forward. It does obviously commend the diligence that those commissioners down there, specifically Commissioner Murguia, Commissioner Walker, and Markley have done in that south end down there, and this would complement that development down there greatly. It's needed by the police officers, it's needed by the community. It has a direct result on all of us. You'd ask, why would the firefighters want to get involved in this? We're taxpayers here, and we like to see our tax money spent well, and so we believe this would be a project.
You had 30 seconds.
I've been waiting for that for a long time, haven't you? We just want to offer the support. It's good for the community, and thank you for the time, and I'll get even with you, Commissioner King.
Thank you very much. I look forward to
Commissioner
it.
King.
Yes.
I think that based not only on what we heard here, but what we've known since the very beginning, is that this is a project that is needed and has been needed. I mean, I was in Bob, I think I go back to high school at Turner High School. You know, there were people living south of the river in those days. And we had this little high school. I think that was the police station when I was in high school. We've got a fire station that I can go back to 1955 that my dad took me up to, that was a volunteer fire station, and I got a tour of it, me and a couple of my little friends, because we knew some of the volunteer firefighters. The need for fire and police infrastructure cannot be understated or will be deferred by me for any other projects. We've seen what happens when police cars don't have dash cams over the last several weeks. We have all kinds of infrastructure needs, and I've always thought, there are people who are going to disagree with me, that the city, when it was just the city, and now the unified government, always did police and fire very well compared to what we are always compared to, that being Johnson County. I think we need to move this forward, and to the full commission, and I think we need to move it forward sooner rather than later, realizing that puts a burden on our new administrator to come up with a plan that will work and that he can present. So I'm making a motion that we move this forward to the full commission for further discussion and hopefully action on the adoption of a plan approving the construction of South Patrol with SWAT. Well, I'm going to put with South Patrol.
We don't have to make a motion. This is for information only. I think we've given it to them. We have one more speaker, and then staff has direction, I think, clear direction, or I hope so.
Well, I think,
I
I
think-
disagree with you, Commissioner. I've made a motion, we don't need a motion, but I want everybody, in a sense, to vote. Well, nobody came up then.
Commissioner, as I said before, I think it's the intent of this staff to come back with options. But if you said to proceed with something right now, I don't know what number to tell you. I don't know, I can't tell you how big the building is. I don't know all the site development. What am I going to approve tonight? You know, I would much rather come back with some number that has some reason to it. You know, I think.
I'm not asking you for a number tonight, Bob.
Okay.
I'm asking you to come back with a plan.
I think that was that was the points we made earlier.
Administrator Bach.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think first I just want to say it's great to hear all the passion from the public coming out in regard to unified government facilities. Been here a number of years. I don't think I've ever had the public come up and speak in favor of spending money for unified government employee buildings. So that's great to hear. One thing, and I'm going to step back on a couple issues, because a comment was made that the state threw us under the rug. I want to reach out and make a compliment to Secretary Roberts. Commissioner Marghia commented on him. Whatever the situation was to drop the funding at the state level, Secretary Roberts called me. He came to Kansas City, Kansas, made a personal visit to me to apologize from their position that they were not able to proceed forward. He did not say what happened to his money. He just said he no longer had access to that money. But I commend him for the action he took to come to our community and to take that effort. He could have just did it on the phone and said, look, we're not going to be in the project anymore, we're out of it. But he did take that step, so I want to recognize him for that, because we have portrayed them a little bit, throwing us under the rug, and certainly from Secretary of Corrections' perspective, he did nothing of the sort to us and complimented us for our process. He was very complimentary of how fast our staff was working to try to advance and build that into it. Seems a little adversarial tonight. I think everybody's on the same page as the direction we want to go. As Bob said a few weeks ago, we had a curveball thrown at us. We were working toward a 20,000 square foot facility, several $1 million into it. We changed it. Now we're at about a 10,000 square foot facility. It takes us more than a couple weeks to just reprogram and change everything that we were planning to do to make that happen. We've come tonight to give you an update to say this was the path we were heading down. We were out for bid to make it happen. Now we got to redirect it, and we'll come back here in a couple of weeks. And if you want us to come back and work on the project in front of the full commissioner, we can do that. But our recommended action would be to come back to the Finance Committee. Met with Mike Grimm earlier today. We talked about how we could restructure different ways in the bonds, as I said a little while ago, where we could maybe backload the principal to allow the TIF project to come up with a way to make this fund. So we're looking at some different ways and be creative with our financing that could lower our payment on it now and make this come out of the TIF project and still leverage the money there's from the state level. So I think we have some good opportunities to advance it. And as I said, I'm an advocate. I'd like to do all our facilities. It costs a lot of money to make them work. This is one that has a unique opportunity to it because we have TIF financing that's coming into it and some state revenue opportunities. So we'll come back and we'll have some good options. There'll be some payments we'll need to step out and make, but we're going to be able to come to you with, I think, some solutions that are at least there to consider and be happy about. And I think I probably look at tonight to say we had a curveball thrown at us, but we still got a positive outlook, and then we should be looking at it from that perspective. How you want to deal with what might happen to the state, that's out of our control from a state perspective.
Ma'am, would you like to speak?
Yes, just briefly.
State your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, I'm sure it won't take that long. My name is Leslie Mahone. I live at 1060 Kimball, Parkwood. And the reason I'm here is just because I heard about the meeting, and I like Miss McGee. I don't think she even knows me, but I go through Argentina a lot. I shop there now. I've seen it come up, and being that where I come from, we don't have those. We don't have a grocery store. I don't want to get into that, but she will respond to me. I've never seen her, except here, you know. But when I on my Facebook, she does respond. And I've called a couple of you other commissioners, and you never call me back. You never write me back. I don't even know who you are. Well, I do, but I won't call any names because I just told you my address, so you know who you are. But I go to Argentina.
Please.
I'm just being frank. And what I do is, my money is green everywhere I go. So I choose to go to Argentina. You know, I don't go to the legends. But I go there because it's friendly. And I see the upcoming, you know, and I saw how, you know, someone had to put a lot of thought into that. Because it was God-forsaken like the North End. You know, and I'm saying that right now because maybe while we're here, and I do own 2 properties there that I can't get rid of, and I don't even want to live in them. So what I'm saying is I'm telling the commissioner now that I can look at her in her face and tell her, I appreciate the work you do. And it does something for me, and it gives me some hope that maybe, you know, it could happen where I live. I've been there 50 years, started off as a kid, Fairfax Elementary, Northwest, Northeast, and Sumner Spartan. Not the Sabre, I'm a Spartan. And, you know, I like I said, my heart's here, and when I feel like, when I see things like that happen in some desolate areas, because Argentina was about like us, I feel that there's some hope. So, you know, I'm willing to help, and I told Ms. McGee on her Facebook, whatever she needs, I feel like I'm an Argentine resident as well because I shop there, and I love just going through and seeing the growth. So that's all I have to say, commissioners, and, you know, and don't forget about the North End. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Please state your name and your address, and you had 3 minutes.
My name is Elma Sully, and I live at 3333 North 123rd Street, Kansas City, Kansas. And I would like to ask this council, is there any way that you can vote on a resolution to pursue this? Because I appreciate your attitudes, I appreciate the comments that have been made back here, but I would appreciate your voting on a resolution to pursue this. And I'll give my, what do they say? I will give my remainder of my time, will go to somebody else.
I need to ask legal a question. This was for information only. I think staff has direction, but Hal has requested a vote. Could you give me some guidance, please?
I think if it gets a second, we can vote on it, but I don't think it's needed as stated. The staff does have direction and has said what they're going to do.
Well, then it doesn't hurt to have it either, does it?
Can you restate your motion? Sorry, it's been a little while.
Restate exactly what you want.
We want to give them direction to move forward with planning.
Basically, motion to move it forward to the full commission. I didn't say next week or 2 weeks from now. There was no.
They actually have to go back and look at the numbers first, correct? And then you need to come back here.
I think the important thing was for the public to see that the commissioners that are on this committee are publicly, not privately, not on Facebook, emphasizing that we want this project to move forward. Now, that's all it is. I realize that there's numbers and there's, you know, you got to plan it, and whoever threw you a curve, you got a curve thrown at you, and now you got to adjust. All I'm saying is, we're saying as a committee, I'm not presuming anyone's vote, but that we're going to move this thing forward to the full commission. I understand it probably has to go to the finance committee with the financial aspects of it, but I don't want there to be any doubt in the public's mind the certain certitude of the commitment that we have to this, and it's also for the benefit of the administrator. This is not a project that we want to have fail.
Second.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second. Just for the record, I don't think I've ever done anything on Facebook, and I've always been blunt and upfront, and if you don't think so, just ask me. Roll call.
I would like to say I do want to make sure that I understand what Commissioner Walker has presented, and that we're voting on asking staff to go through the proper procedures and go back through the numbers, go to proper committees, and with the ultimate goal of making it to the full commission with this project. Correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Markley,
Aye.
Manos,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming. We have a meeting following this one immediately, so please, if you exit quietly.
All right, we do have an Administration and Human Services Standing Committee meeting, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to welcome everyone. Nobody wants to stay for our boring meeting, but welcome anyone who wants to stay. Anyone wishing to speak will follow that same procedure. Guys, if you could please exit quietly, we have another meeting.
Talk out in the hallway, please.
Thank you. So we only, we'll go ahead and do roll call. Oh, except for Terrence ran off.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't hear you.
Gilbert,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Manos,
Here.
Walker,
Here.
Markley.
Here. We only have one item on our agenda, that's why I wanted to go ahead and get started quickly. So the mayor has asked that we take a look back at our goals and outcomes. Oh, yes.
Move for approval. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. That was our minutes approval. I'm not sure if she's spoken to the microphone. Sorry, we don't have our script tonight, so Kane and I are winging it. So the mayor's asked us to look back at our goals and outcomes in preparation for that strategic planning on November 1st. So I just wanted to list out our goals and outcomes in preparation for perhaps discussing them in our September meeting. Our strategic planning, again, is November 1st. I will note for staff, and please correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I will note for staff and for the clerk that there are several items that we keep listing out on our list that I don't think belong there anymore. The UGTV was a sort of a asked and answered. I think we've dealt with that in the budget. The tax sales and local residents preference, again, was I think a one-time question that legal answered, so I think we can remove that. There are two things that are not on this list that are on our goals list, which is the social services, which I think has always been ours, so I'm not sure why it's not on here. And then the second one was the innovation item that we took on more recently that we have sort of worked through with the 311. So if staff could update that list for the next meeting, that would be great. So we sort of have a full idea of what we're looking at. And then I'm just going to pose sort of two questions we can discuss tonight, or we can plan on them next meeting. Two questions to our commissioners. One is something that we've discussed on and off, which is that social services is on our list, but we've never written any goals for it. It's one of those things that the UG supplies some money for some different social services, but we don't actually provide that as a core service. So the question that I'm going to have for you next meeting that I'm hoping we can definitively answer is, do we continue to track that as a goal if we can't come up with any goals for it? Or is it something that we continue to say is important, but that we just don't track as a separate goal because we haven't added any items for staff to perform?
I would like to see the list of social services
Okay.
under that.
Staff, if you could
You mean the ones we
give
fund?
us an idea of what,
You're talking about?
well, I think
The
a
ones
list
we
of things
fund
we're
and-
providing. So what is the UG doing in terms of social services, both what we're funding and what we're actually performing, which I think is probably a relatively small list, but just give us an idea of what those things look like so that we can see if we can develop any goals out of them.
If
Would that
there's,
be fair to say?
correct, thank you.
Fabulous. And then my other question for whether it's this meeting or next meeting is just going to be whether we have additional goals we want to add and discuss with our commission when we come to strategic planning, and whether we have specific items we want to report on. The one thing that we discussed in great detail early on was workforce development. So perhaps Commissioner Philbrook, I know that you've been on a committee for that. I don't know how close you are to being able to discuss what's going on there, but that might be something you can fill us in on.
I'll make a comment right now that we are working very diligently on that, but we have no intention of bringing anything forward until we actually have a package to present and information, okay, on that. The other thing is that it may be in October, you know, when we present to us.
Perfect.
If we can. If we cannot, then it may be at our strategic planning meeting.
Either way, it's good to know we're gonna have something.
Yeah, the plan is to have something because, I mean, we're hot on the trail, but, you know, sometimes it's money, you know?
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Okay. And then if you have other comments for tonight, I'm happy to field those. If not, what I'm going to do is for our September meeting, I know one thing we're going to be discussing is the boards and commissions, so that'll be on the list for discussion since we took that one up. But the other thing I'll ask to have specifically put on the agenda is the social services issue and whether we want to add goals to that or whether we want to make the recommendation to the full commission that we not have that as one of our core goals.
And so I have a question right now as it relates to our November 1 meeting. I do believe it's yourself and Hal and myself that are supposed to be on that organizational meeting. I would like to say in public right now, we need to meet sometime soon and talk about that.
I think staff was working on, and I think what she's referring to, Mr. Connor, is we were on the committee to select the new strategic planner based on the change in staff that's going on there, but we've not heard anything. So if someone could just get with us and update us, tell us if we're supposed to be doing something.
Yeah, if we're supposed to be adding names to this list or suggestions or whatever, or if you guys are going to be the ones that
we just need to know if we're
figure it out.
This is a quick update if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so we're working on the RFP for the consultant. We're going to follow the same process as was 3 or 4 years ago when that firm was picked, and we're going to have that out this week. So the timetable will be, we'll ask you guys to convene as a group once we get proposals in, and you'll start your process. So we're still a few weeks out from actually convening the selection committee, which is the 3 of you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other comments on our goals discussion for next time? All right, then this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Are you going upstairs and then back down?